Greetings, dear viewer, and welcome to Purposes Crossed, where I hope that people who are called by Jesus for different purposes cross paths and exchange ideas. In this video, we continue with our series of reflections on the Sermon on the Mount. In the previous video of the series, we looked at Jesus' take on the discipline of almsgiving, one of the pillars of Jewish piety in the first century. We saw that he actually expects his followers to give alms, but that they should do so without fanfare and without drawing attention to themselves. In other words, the spiritual disciplines are not intended for others to think highly of us. The second pillar of Jewish piety Jesus addresses is prayer. Once again, he tells us not to call attentions to ourselves as hypocrites do. Here we need to remind ourselves that Jesus is not talking about corporate prayer. He is specifically targeting personal, private prayer in this section. If it were corporate prayer, it would make no sense for Jesus to tell his audience that they should go to an inner room and pray in secret. Corporate prayer just cannot be done in secret. But it is like the parable of the tax collector and the Pharisee, where both were giving utterance to private personal prayer in a public setting. What Jesus is saying in the Sermon on the Mount is that personal prayer is a relationship between God and an individual. Because of this, when I pray as an individual, I should place myself in a situation in which nothing intrudes on my relationship with God. Public places are dangerous because we are unlikely to be altogether honest. After all, we are not likely to air our dirty laundry in a busy street corner. Who would think of standing in church and saying, "Father, forgive me, for I have embezzled money from my place of work," or "God, have mercy on me because I had lustful thoughts about the person standing next to me"? Such prayers are for private places because in private we can be honest with God and allow Him to forgive us and to strengthen us to confess our sins to another Christian. Yes, I did say confess our sins to another Christian. While the sacrament of confession practiced in some Christian traditions has been abused, this does not mean that the practice itself is to be rejected. There is genuine freedom that comes from confessing our sins to another person and hearing that person declare that we are forgiven. Of course, this needs to be done with care and with structures that safeguard the person who is making a confession. Here, Jesus mentions the issue of a reward. What reward, however, do we expect from prayer? If prayer is a relationship with God, then God will respond to our prayers to the extent to which we open up to Him. If we parade our prayers in public and remain close to God, we make the relationship dysfunctional. If we put out a facade of health, we will not allow God to act to heal our lives and restore us. Only those who are willing to cry, "Help," will receive help. Those who are content with relating to God as though things were all very fine with them will receive the harsh reward of God's silence in their time of need. Now, while I have made it seem that prayer is a black and white issue, we know that it's not so. There is nothing that we can do to guarantee God will answer our prayers in a manner that we desire. Prayer is not magic that works according to some formulas, but prayer does require an attitude of transparency and submission before God. Jesus knows this. Hence, He urges us to go where we will not be tempted to be dishonest with God. Jesus tells us to go away from all the distractions of performance anxiety so that we may bear ourselves to the only person who is strong enough and merciful enough to accept us no matter what we have done.